Hello, welcome to our Starting a Private Practice webinar. My name is Kara Welke. I'm an occupational therapist and the owner of Home Therapy Solutions and Next Level Occupational Therapy. We are super excited to help therapists across the United States start, build, and grow their private practices, and we hope you will find value in this webinar. As always, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have. Today, we will be talking about starting a private practice, and hopefully you will be able to decide if it is right for you. It is relevant for those of you that have already started because we will talk about important things that you really need to know and understand as a therapy professional in private practice. We'll talk about the top 5 reasons to start, the top 5 reasons to navigate cautiously, as I mentioned, what you need to know, and additional items to consider. This is part 1 of a series of webinars we will be doing. So be sure that after this webinar, you check out our next webinar where we will go into more detail on the different types of private practices and payer sources and provide additional steps for you to think about when you're getting up and going. We work with several academic programs across the United States, and our webinars can help with meeting ACODE standards. This webinar can help address standard B4.4 and B4.5 with the information we talk about that is relevant for demonstrating knowledge of and evaluating the business aspects of the practice, of private practice, looking at what you need to think about when you are getting into private practice, as well as we will talk about national requirements and licensure, federal and state laws briefly today as well. For those of you that already have a private practice, or those of you that are thinking about having a private practice, why do you want to start one? We all have different reasons why we get into this. We actually did a in-person event a few weeks ago, and all of the private practice presenters that were there, yes, the recording can be shared. All the private practice presenters that were there shared their stories, and it was really motivational to see what drew people into private practice. Some was maybe a family connection, some a personal connection. So a lot of different varieties. So for you guys, what are the reasons why you guys feel it's a good reason to start a private practice? Go ahead and share. And when you're sharing, if you could make sure you click everyone, then the other people that are on with us tonight can see what you're thinking. So don't be afraid. Share what you think are good reasons to start a private practice. Janelle, offer services that aren't offered by mainstream practices. 100%. This is what we do day in and day out. This was one of the big reasons why I started my practice, several reasons for starting my practice. But again, it is so hard to start new programs or do anything when you're working for someone else because you have to always go through different hoops, right? We can start and do what we want to an extent, which we'll talk about today, and put it in place and really benefit a wide variety of people. Clinical freedom, 100% agree, Tiffany. Andrea, my OT colleague, and I have organizations continuously reach out to us asking for guidance on incorporating OT or asking us to provide services there. I realize consulting is a bit different than private practice, but I look forward to learning anything I can. And yeah, Andrea, we can discuss this too. But we have therapists that talk about they either have colleagues or they have previous clients that are reaching out to them. And that's a good sign that your services may be wanted or needed. And so looking into starting a business like that could be great. Christine, my biggest reason is because our health system is not mitigating chronic disease. I want to address that with the highest risk populations, 100%. I mean, we're so backwards, right? not doing anything until it's too late or till you're in the hospital and so forth. What can we do sooner than later? More autonomy for decision making. Great. Um, JC, I started a private practice because I was encouraged to be unethical in my workplace. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's happening way too often out there. I was actually talking with someone earlier today that, said at their workplace, they're, being forced to see multiple people at the same time. There's um, techs that are seeing people that are being charged for therapy and so forth. Um, it's just ridiculous the things that are going on. So, and she wanted to change her life and start a practice that aligned with her values. And I love this too, JC. I did not view my clients as numbers, but souls. When you start your own private practice, things do shift a little bit. My husband's a psychologist. He's not always the biggest fan when I say this, but we see older adults working in their homes, and you really kind of become part of their family as well. So, and you're there for the long game, especially those of us that work with older adults, and they don't want to go in a nursing home. They don't want to go to assisted living. So we might be in there for the long haul, keeping them in the home. I've had several clients that we've been able to keep out of the home, but we're also there until, they end up passing away. Christy. So Christy will come on. I'll make her talk at the end. She's in our therapy business builder program, but freedom and flexibility to set your own schedule and have work-life balance, have control over clinical care. Lots, lots of great ones. Christine, also productivity standards. Um, Suzette, flex schedule. Laura, freedom, family, and no more than 98% productivity. Isn't that awful? Marquetta, hopefully I'm saying that right. There's a shift in education for SLPs and want to continue to help those that are underrepresented. Bridging the gap between school and home for kids and offering more support services. Christy, unlimited earning potential, stronger relationships with clients, professional growth, the ability to fill a gap, to be able to expand mental health interventions. These are all awesome reasons why we should start a private practice. Just a little bit more of mine. Selfishly, really, I never wanted to miss my kids' events. I taught for 8 years before I started my private practice, and I wanted to still work so that I could give students real life situations. So that meant that I was also teaching, or I was also working PRN. So then I got stuck on the weekend shift and the holidays. And Christmas Day is not fun when you have kids and a family. And I'm like, people don't want to have therapy on Christmas Day either, and weekends, always trying to reschedule things so I didn't miss any event. So really the flexibility of being able to do what I want when I want was a huge reason. Another reason was to be able to provide the type of care that I wanted to provide and knew that was best because it wasn't being done. I came from facilities that a lot of, UBE, New Step, TheraBand, dowels, walking, and, just very repetitive type things, and wanted to do something different and better. So, um, um, and I've been doing this now since 2018. Anyone who's been working with me over that time knows that my kids come in and out a lot. So that's my 18-year-old, and who will be graduating. And haven't had to miss any events, which is great there. So, okay, you guys covered most of them, but we're going to talk. These are the ones we hear the most about, and you guys covered pretty much all of the different areas. The flexibility, freedom, fulfillment, fostering innovation and relationships, and financial potential. So I think we can put almost all of the items that you guys shared with us into some of these different categories. So again, flexibility is huge. Being able to set your own schedule, I'm not a morning person. Having to be at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, even 8 o'clock in the morning would be a little rough for me now. Um, and again, all of the therapists that work for me love the ability to set their own schedule. Many of the therapists that work with me are also moms. They want to pick up their kids. They want from school. They want to drop off their kids from school. They want to be able to go have lunch with their kids at school. So not only for me to have that flexibility, but I also want to be able to provide it for therapists that work with me, so they can have that work-life balance. Um, the flexibility is also in regards to many other things, such as who we work with. We have the flexibility when we have our own private practice to, like you guys mentioned, that clinical flexibility. We can create the programs we want to create. We can work with who we want. We can adjust if we see a need. We can pivot. Laura, I'll make her talk in a little bit, but she had the flexibility when she started her private practice to make a big pivot, and it really paid off for her. So the flexibility is not just for time and your schedule, but also in what we do, how we do it, making shifts if we want. We don't have to go through the higher ups to try to get a new program that we know is going to be beneficial into place. Freedom. So the freedom, again, freedom, flexibility kind of roll into each other. But we have the freedom to innovate and explore new opportunities. We don't have constraints from the organizations or leadership teams. We have full control over decision-making process. We can ability to quickly adapt. There are several programs I wanted to start that kind of got shut down because of the time or effort or money or will it work, not work. One of the things that we do in our private practice is our occupational therapist have a standard operating procedure that we were all able to sit down and create that allows us to do a lot more than the basic day-to-day therapy sessions that you see in many other places. And I think that, even if you Google like our home therapy solutions business, you'll see that from clients and their reviews of us. We're just different because we have the freedom to do so much more than what we did working for someone else. And we don't have to, be stuck to 15 minutes or 30 minutes or, no longer than an hour, things like that in practice. And then fulfillment. So not only do we have that freedom and flexibility, but we also get a lot of therapists we talk to want to do this because they want to do something more. Anyone in here that really wants to start a private practice, because yes, you want the freedom and flexibility, but it's also about you want to do something more meaningful, not just for you, but also the community, the people you work with. Some of the business owners that we work with, started their private practices out of needs that some of their family members went through, and they wanted to really build a practice that was giving back to others in their community. And you're able to provide awesome opportunities for others, you know, just being able to provide a better workplace for other therapists. Because again, not everyone wants to start a private practice, but many of us are burnt out. I, use the Alternative Careers Facebook page as an example. Um, how many people are burnt out and do not like what they're doing, but yet they might not want to start their own business. So those of us that are able to start a private practice, we can provide that opportunity for those people and have them be able to still do things that they want that helps bring meaning to them. And fostering. So when you do a private practice, awesome. Kimberly said 100% fulfillment. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss that. When you're doing a private practice, you pretty much have to be willing to foster innovation and relationships. I know there are more introverts that do private practice, but they're still innovating, and they still know the power of relationships and networking if they're going to be successful. So you begin to kind of develop a whole family in your community outside of your private practice, and establish not just relationships with the clients and their caregivers, but also community partners. And hopefully you're creating a better community where people are collaborating together. We've had a lot of therapists that have started networking groups in their community of other private practice owners, even groups where people from a variety of different practice or different areas of business come together. We're able to do innovative programs and really impact. I feel for OTs in the group that we really belong in the home and community, and we should be the leaders in the home and community, and we can really make a positive impact. Um, there was it's been a while now, but we took over the exercise groups for the senior center, and in their annual report that they shared with everyone, they reported that they had a 40% increase in participation in their exercise programs since they partnered with Home Therapy Solutions. So again, we're really making a positive impact on many people besides even the clients we meet with, directly for therapy. And then financial. So I will say, and we'll talk about this in the 5 reasons to navigate cautiously. Um, a lot of people come to us and they're very unrealistic about what they can make financially, especially right away. Um, but there is a lot of financial independence that you can gain. Um, and you have control over your own earnings, and you're able to diversify, create multiple revenue streams. There's a variety of incentives to owning your own business. So the financial potential can be huge, but that's also another thing that we'll discuss in the 5 reasons to navigate cautiously, that you have to have a solid foundation, and you have to make sure that you know and understand how important financial management is in your business so that you do grow and scale appropriately with that. But when you're creating a business, you're creating a valuable asset, that can be sold or leveraged, and you're in control of how you reinvest those profits. And, you know, as a business owner, there's so many things you can deduct. So there's a lot of other great opportunities out there financially when you start your own business. Anything I missed? I mean, it makes it sound pretty awesome to start your own private practice, right? Anything I missed that you guys would throw in, or anything that really stood out to you in that list before I move on to things you need to consider? Okay, moving my chat over here. Okay, what are reasons to navigate cautiously? Why do us as therapists versus other just people starting businesses in the community need to navigate cautiously? What are things that we really need to think about? And those of you that already have a business, share your thoughts, ideas, what you've seen as a business owner. But also, United Healthcare. Yep. Insurance is a big challenge, 100%. For those of you that are thinking about starting a business and you're here because you're thinking about it, what are some reasons that you're hesitant to start a practice? Okay, so insurance is a big challenge, legal ramifications surrounding our licensure and state practice acts. Great. What are some other ones? Marketing, lack of consistent paycheck, ability to make enough money and juggle all business aspects, doing it right, finding clients may be difficult, imposter syndrome. Awesome. Lot of lot of things to consider, great things to consider. Lease a space, having it be my main source of income and failing, all things that we hear. Okay. So let's talk about those reasons to navigate cautiously. Okay. So regulations and compliance are really huge. And we actually see a lot of therapy professionals skip this part and don't really think about it when they're starting their private practice. They're thinking more about, I need a website, I need business cards, I need rack cards, when those are the least of our worries when we're helping therapists start and build a private practice. It's really important that we know and understand this, and I'll get into more depth now. Sorry, I should do an overview. Investment. It is an investment, and I will tell you the number of therapists that are wanting to start their business without a good understanding of the financial investment as well as the time investment um, is a ton. And think about any business out there. How many businesses start with no financial investment, no, minimal time investment? There is an investment that's required to get a business up and going because there's many components to it. System struggle. We see that, therapists really struggle with systems and understanding why they need a system. Uncertainty, that fear of failing that you guys were talking about. And then economy. I mean, let's face it, we don't know what's going on day in to day out, right? With our economy. When I started my private practice, it was, before COVID, and we had to go through COVID when we were a very newer practice. And we also helped several therapists that literally started their private practice like in December, January, February when COVID hit. But I will also challenge you guys that we see a lot of people feel that they're more safe and secure at their current job working for someone, and they think that's safer when in reality, you could be let go any day when you're working for someone else. And we've seen that happen often. In fact, that's the whole reason why we started our therapy business builder program back in 2019, 2020 with PDPM, PDGM, and so forth, because a lot of therapists were losing their positions. So, and then yeah, you just never know. Have any of you guys gone through either being laid off, pay cuts, job cuts, or fear of losing your job when you're working for someone else? Has anyone been through that? And why I'm reading that, I mean, the lots of avenues to decide: leasing, regulations, compliance, policy procedures, designating materials for marketing website, credentials, yeah, there's so much. Um, let's see. So it looks like some people are going through this. Pay cuts twice. Um, Currently working at the VA, and all the changes are super scary. Layoffs and pay cuts. Yeah, a lot of people are going through this, and it's extremely scary. When you own and operate your own business, you have control over it, and you can make those shifts and pivots as you need. Versus relying on someone else and what are they going to do um, with it. So, okay, let's start with regulations and compliance. Um, I don't know if any of you guys know Nancy Beckley. She's amazing resource, like the guru of compliance, and she's since retired. But we were recently talking that there really needs to be an assessment that people go through before getting into private practice to make sure they know and understand the regulations that that they need to consider and compliance guidelines, because there are some things like with the 1557 laws and what we're required to have in place that in some areas therapists might not be able to afford having a practice depending on what they're doing. And a lot of therapists really don't consider a lot of the rules and regulations that come to play. There's great resources in your community. If you haven't reached out to SCORE, small business, there's women groups, there's a lot of different free resources in your community, and we always recommend utilizing them. However, they don't always know and understand the healthcare rules and regulations that we have to follow. And on top of that, they don't always know the difference because, you know, us as therapists have different rules and regulations than MDs do. So, that has led a lot of people astray. And in fact, that was one of the biggest things that when I started my private practice, I had no idea because I saw the PTs all doing cash-based services. I was going to do cash-based services. And then I realized that I couldn't do that. When I wanted to work with older adults, that we have to bill Medicare and the mandatory claims and all of that. Another thing I didn't realize is that we couldn't use OTAs and PTAs in the home back then under Med B. Who were my first hire? OTA and PTA. So again, I didn't take the time to know and learn and understand. In my defense, there were no resources out there. I tried to find them, which is awesome because there now are resources out there to help people with navigating it. But, you know, there's federal, there's state, um, insurance have different rules and regulations. We have Practice Act that we need to follow. So lots of things to think about. And yes, we'll send a summary at the end. And then an investment. The nice thing about starting some of these private practices is we can get up and going very low cost, especially for those of us that are doing a mobile practice. It doesn't take a huge investment to get up and going, and you can continue to work on the side to make it work. But there still is an investment side of it in order to get everything set up appropriately. So you build that solid foundation so that as you grow, you don't kind of crumble because of all the things that you missed out. Also, time. So I hear all the time that I'm going to start a private practice because I want the time freedom. When in actuality, starting and running a business does take a lot of time, but you do have that flexibility in there. And then energy. You know, it takes a lot of energy. Laura and Christy and I were texting, I think yesterday or maybe this morning. And, it's a lot. It takes a lot of energy and it can be emotionally draining, and you can have those ups and downs. And my husband will tell you that I have said that I need to shut down and close my business probably over 500 times now. Because you have those ups and downs, and you have to be able to really be relentless and not give up. In order to make it, because it can be tough in the healthcare world. Not only do we have rules and regulations we have to follow, even though we don't necessarily agree with them. Also, some areas have a tough market with bigger hospital systems and so forth that try to kind of rule the roost and not let people refer out and things like that. So you have to have a little bit of thick skin to be able to push through some of this and understand that it takes time. It's not what they say on social media, be up and running and earning $1 million in 3 months or 6 months. It does take time to build up and develop a practice like this. So, okay. System struggle. So when we look at system struggle, how many of you guys know what type of systems you need to have? What kind of systems do you need to have? Anyone? I will tell you that I had no idea what people meant by systems. And then when I started to do coaching, everyone was talking about systems that you have to have in place. And I'm like, okay, fine, I need systems. But what systems do I need? And I will tell you that it wasn't until very late into my business that I finally learned, oh, this is what you mean by systems and how it works. Um, and I will tell you, it's so much easier starting the systems right away when you're starting rather than going back and doing it later. It is very difficult. It takes way more time. Um, but again, sometimes you have to slow down before you move fast again. So, we also see people that are just a one person show. They're like, I don't need a system. Um, well, in actuality, when you have a business, you have marketing, you have billing, you have the actual treatment, you have HR. There's a lot of things that go into it. So systems are even more important, just as important when you're a one person show. So you can automate things and streamline things to be able to do more. And we'll talk more about, the types of systems and things that you can put in place as well. But what we've seen, either the lack of knowledge of the systems or also just the refusal to integrate them or not taking the time to integrate them. We have therapists that get up and going really fast and start to get a bunch of clients and they just go full speed. Well, that can be almost more damaging because they don't take the time to set everything up and follow through with things and making sure they're getting paid, making sure they're collecting payments, following up on denials, things like that. And overall, systems are going to help you really balance everything you need to do. Awesome. So it looks like we have a lot of great suggestions on what you need to have for systems, and then some people say that's part of what you guys need as far as learning systems. Uncertainty. So, you know, how many of us, I mean, yes or no? Um, are you uncertain or have fear about starting a private practice? Or if you have a private practice, do you still have uncertainty or stress at some points? Yes or no in that? Put it in the chat so you can all see what everyone says all day long. Yes. Yes. Fear of failing. Uncertainty is a constant, I think. So again, I just want you guys to know you're not alone and you're going to be stressed. In fact, you're going to fail. I can tell you right now, you're going to fail at something. You're going to make massive mistakes, but you're going to learn by those failures and you're going to learn by those mistakes. And you're going to have some failures or mistakes that you think could be the end, like, oh my gosh, I just did the worst thing ever. But you're going to be able to recover from it, make changes, and improve. So it's just really important that you do know that it's going to be stressful, and you're going to make mistakes. And you know, I know people are concerned about financial stability, but honestly, you should be concerned about financial stability wherever you're at and you're, working for someone else and so forth. So it's really important to be able to manage the ups and downs. And that's where having a community, a team, a network of others on here to support you is really important as you go through the process. In fact, Christy and Laura, who I keep talking about, that I'll have talk at the end here, they did not know each other and they have become business besties and support each other throughout this and lived across the country from each other. So it's really important to just make sure you're going to be able to handle that. We have we have some people that give up. Um, you know, 3 months, they're not where they want to be and they give up. 6 months, they're not where they want to be and give up. And then we have others that, they get to the point where they think they just can't do it. They're going to give up. We regroup, they start, and then all of a sudden they have more clients than they know what to handle. So it's very important to be able to manage that. And yes, actually, Kim, I have a punching bag out in my garage too, that I bought because my husband said I was kicking too many boxes and things around at one point. So, but I don't use it enough. I need to go use that. And it's kind of fun that you say wine because the besties have wine night, I think, on Wednesdays, right? You guys. So, and then last and not least, the economy. And this is probably more true than ever. Right now with everything going on, you know, pay cut that we hope would get reimbursed, didn't get reimbursed, didn't get changed. The telehealth, not knowing if we're going to be able to continue with telehealth or not. Um, Healthcare system in general is just kind of train wreck. Sometimes I really think that our healthcare system and how everything runs is worse off now than when I graduated back in 2000. So, there's a lot of things going on with the economy that really impacts and can make starting and running a business. Do other people agree with me? I saw that and absolutely. I mean, am I not alone that things have gotten worse than better? Um, I feel like back in the day when I graduated, we were all, you know, working together and transitions and collaborating. I don't know. It's just like crazy. Um, and I'm not 100% sure why I put social media with economy, but social media causes a lot of problems for business owners. Um, it creates a lot of unrealistic expectations. People are getting questions answered on social media that are completely wrong, and can lead to costly problems. Okay, so hopefully I didn't depress you enough. Those are, some of the big ones that we see on a regular basis. So now we're gonna take a little quiz. So and this is from an article in 2023, and this is just in general. So this article was how to know if you are cut out for entrepreneurship. So first question, are you okay working alone? Can you take initiative, but also relinquish control? And that is absolutely huge. Being able to know when you need to relinquish control and delegate is absolutely one of the most important things in your practice. And if I showed you how my practice grew over time, you can literally see when like our profits skyrocketed when I finally learned that I needed to delegate. Is your idea a need to have or a nice to have? Um, so there's a lot of things that people want to do and think would be great, but are people going to pay for it? So we get this a lot. A lot of people want to do preventative stuff, right? Wellness based stuff, which we 100% know is needed. But is the people in your community going to pay for those services? Are they going to come to you? So you do have to make sure that what you want to do is truly a need and people are going to purchase it and so forth. And then, can you support yourself if you make no money for a few years? Now, with some of the types of practices that we're building and running, we can make money a lot sooner than later. In fact, I was recently on a call with someone who started their business a year ago, and I just burst out laughing at how much money she had stacked aside. It was kind of like she was pocketing all this money away, like squirrels do with their nuts or whatever. I'm like, what are you doing? You need to pay yourself more and so forth. So you can do it, but it takes time and energy to do it. So after reading these questions, are you okay working alone? Can you take an initiative but also relinquish control? Is your idea need to have or nice to have? And can you support yourself if you make no money for a few years? So I, if you feel comfortable putting out in the chat, um, based on this, are you cut out for entrepreneurship? Yes or no? And be honest with yourselves. And you can put maybe, I don't know, questionable, or you can share which one of these um, kind of makes you nervous. I mean, I can tell you my husband, he would not be okay working alone. Um, the initiative part, I'm not sure about that. He just likes to go do his thing and so forth. So, okay, so we got some yeses, we got some maybes, and that's good. I mean, again, giving a maybe is great because you're truly looking at, is this the right fit for you? And we really want people to get into this knowing that they have what it takes to do it, because really social media, the internet and so forth kind of gloss over how difficult it actually can get when you're doing it. So I love this. I would have said no 5 years ago, but apparently the answer is a solid hell yes. That's awesome. Um, and for those of you that already are business owners, I will tell you that I am no longer employable. I don't think I could ever work for anyone else. I just don't think I can do it. I don't know if anyone else feels that way that is already a business owner, but you get to the point where, yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be told what to do, how to do it, or when to show up, or that flexible schedule, or so forth. Although I do plan to work concerts in the future when my kids are all gone. My husband and I are going to go and be the security at concerts. Figure it's a good way to earn some money and listen to music. Okay. Percy, yeah. Okay, so digging in a little bit more on therapy specific private practice discussion. So are you really starting a business, or are you creating a job for yourself? Okay, so and we see a mix of this. Okay, so you know some people really are truly more creating a job for themselves than actually becoming a business owner. So I like to use this graph and have you all think about it. And again, this is Robert Kiyosaki's, I'm not good with pronunciation of things. This is based off his cash flow quadrant. So have you all seen his cash flow quadrant before? Yes or no? If not, it's a good book to read. He has a lot of resources online you can check out. But basically, so on the left side is the least possibility for, financial, making more money and all of that kind of stuff, and less freedom and so forth. So the first one up here is therapist working for someone else. Okay, so that's what they teach us at school, right? They teach us to go apply for jobs. We were just asked to come and do interviews for a program here. They teach us how to go and become an employee. And this is really for people that value security, that are really focused on income. But again, not 100% sure that, we should really be thinking that it's a total security and income with some things that are going on. Okay. So then underneath that, the other option is, okay, people want to work for themselves. They want to be their own boss. They value independence, but they really just own a job. They've created a job for themselves. You are the one doing the thing day in and day out. So you started a therapy business. It's just you. You're doing everything. You are treating the clients. You are doing the billing. You're doing everything. Even if you have like an admin staff or bookkeeper or anything, but your business can't function if you're not there. You're self-employed, right? So a lot of people really want to get over to this right side of the quadrant, and that's when you truly become a business owner. And that's when you have therapists or others actually doing the work, and you're able to run the business. You're, the true CEO, and you have that freedom. You can leave for long durations and it's still going to run. And the key is, having the right people on the bus. So, I've heard business coaches say that you truly don't have a business if you can't leave for a month and be confident that everything runs okay. And it takes time to get there. And then the other quadrant is being an investor, where now you're making money with money and so forth. So when you're thinking about starting a private practice, or if you have a private practice, think about what quadrant you want to be in. Do you just want to be self-employed because you want to be your own boss, you value independence, or do you truly want to get over to the right side of the quadrant where you have more freedom, you can leave for long durations of time, and you are functioning as the CEO? And when you are building and starting a business, knowing what you want to do is key, so that you make sure you're taking the right action steps to get there. And and then of course the next level. So, and I will tell you that we have therapists that we've helped in our therapy business builder program that truly just want to be self-employed. They don't want to deal with hiring employees. They don't want to deal with any of that. They don't want to work for someone else, but they don't want to have people work for them. So they are, kind of stuck in this quadrant down here. But a lot of the therapists we work with are ones that are wanting to be over on the right side of the quadrant, and even get to the point where they can get down and really start making money with money. So out of curiosity, where do you guys feel that you really want to be? Are any of you guys wanting to be in the self-employed section, or do you really want to be over at the business owner? Are your long-term dreams really getting to that investor quadrant? Where do you guys feel that you want to end up, based off of this quadrant? Okay, bottom left with eventual right, owner, investor, business owner. Awesome. And yeah, there's a lot of, I don't do a very good job of explaining this, picking up his book, going on his resources, there's YouTubes on this and so forth. One of the most impactful conferences I went to, and coaches, really talked about that, you don't want to be the person that does the thing day in and day out. It's really once you get to the point where you have other people that do the thing day in and day out, that you truly do get that time freedom and flexibility. I think initially it'd be self-employed to start, but hopefully business owner, probably self-business owner. Yeah. And again, it's okay, but it's important to know where you want to be at, where you feel comfortable to be at. And if you truly want to get over to this business owner, you need to build a solid foundation. There's there's no way around it. You need to have systems in place, and you need to know when to delegate. Those are going to be huge for you. Okay. Another book, that you may want to check out if you haven't, is The E-Myth, Revisited, by Michael. I don't even know how to pronounce it, if it's Gerber but I like this quote. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. I don't know if it just fits so well with me back in the day, that's 100% true. But again, you've created a job for yourself. You're not quite over to that other stage, where you want to be. Anyone right now in that stage where you definitely have created a job for yourself and you do feel like you're, working for a lunatic, meaning, yourself, not just stressed, going every way and so forth? Okay, so, a little bit more, we talked about in the first section, things you need to consider. Um, so I'm just going to highlight some of the top things that, You really need to think about when getting into a private practice for healthcare therapy professionals. So, other regulations to consider. So, when you are a licensed therapist, you do have rules and regulations you have to follow. Um, State rules and regulations, national rules and regulations, insurance rules and regulations, and compliance standards to meet. Um, One thing I see all the time is I'll just give an ABN and I'm fine, and that will allows me to bill for cash. That's not true. It's not the case. So just put that in your back of your brain that that does not work that way. Um, the little tracker here is not working for some reason. I'll use my keyboard. And not all states are the same. So this is another thing that we see happening, especially with social media. People are like, what do I need to do to start my business? What do I need to advance beneficiary notice? And I can talk a little bit more about what that means at the end. So what do I need to do? And then someone will say, you need to start a PLLC, or you need to start an LLC, or you need to start a professional corporation, or um, you, it's direct access. You don't need to get a referral or so forth. Again, never rely on social media to answer your questions, but to also remember, not all states are the same. So, um, I am right on the border of North Dakota and Minnesota. There's different rules and regulations in each state. Insurance, Blue Cross in one state pays completely different than Blue Cross in another state. Supervision rules are different in each state. There's just a lot of things to take in mind when you're starting your businesses. Some states may require a PLLC, some may require a professional corp. So there's different rules and regulations that you really want to think about. um, Little things can turn into a huge problem. Um, so, miscategorizing your business, even missing a comma in your name when you're applying for like your EIN or Medicare can cause problems. Um, I just met with someone today that just setting up the simplest thing like the EIN has led to several week delay in getting the business up and going, which again, time is money, time is our most valuable resource there. So it's important to really follow, um, get assistance and make sure you're doing everything right. The type of name you create can haunt you for years. So I'm a great example of that. Our business name is Home Therapy Solutions. We now have a clinic. We now do pelvic health, men's health, so forth. Yeah, wouldn't be the greatest name that I would pick in the future, but we've made it work. Um, the type of mail you establish can create problems down the road. So there's little things that you don't think about when you start your business. For example, my email for my home therapy solutions is Kara@hometherapysolutionsnd.com. I absolutely hate having to give my business name or my business email all the time because it's way too long. Just little things can be a problem. One thing that was a major problem is like thousands of dollars is we worked with someone that came to us that has been in business for many years, and they didn't realize that when they did their Medicare credentialing, um, they just selected one box different than what they should have, which has resulted in a 5% reduction in what payment they should have had. So over time, that's added up to thousands of dollars that they ended up, not getting throughout the years. Um, you can't just forget you are a licensed therapist. So as PT, OT, OTAs, SLPs, we have rules and regulations we have to follow. We can't just say I'm going to call it wellness and charge cash and forget that we do have practice acts and standards of practice with that we need to follow. Same thing. Unfortunately, we can't just do whatever I want. People get very upset and mad about this on social media. The whole Medicare thing really kind of makes people cranky and so forth. But it is how it is, and you can still be very successful and adapt to that, and it will work out. Not all businesses are equal. So, all of you guys had different ideas for your businesses, which is great. But like a pediatric clinic-based practice, the recommendations that we would provide are going to look completely different than a pediatric home-based practice. Women's health that's cash-based is going to look a lot different than a mobile hybrid practice for older adults. So that's the other thing on social media that I always cringe at, is because people are recommending EMRs, people are recommending, what you should do for insurance or what you should do for intake forms or things like that. But again, not all practices are the same. And you want to make sure that people know and understand what you're doing so you get the best advice based on, your long-term goals. 100% cash-based practice may not be an option. Again, OT, PT, and SLP cannot opt out of Medicare. This is determined by the Social Security Act. I already talked about the ABN, the Advanced Beneficiary Notice. So if you're providing a service that is normally covered by Medicare, but in this particular situation isn't covered, you would issue an ABN. And there's a lot more to it. I remember back in the day that when I had no clue what an ABN was, many years ago, that like we would write out an ABN for like if we gave out green TheraBand and things like that. I don't know why. I even remember that. It was just kind of really weird. Awesome. Thank you, Laura, for putting that in there. And if you go to Medicare's website, they have good information on there about ABNs and when it can be used, what it means, and so forth. Next. Mandatory claim submission. So a lot of people don't know and understand what the mandatory claim submission is. But again, we must submit a Medicare claim for covered service. There's actually violations. I've actually had therapists that have received a letter that they haven't submitted the claim, and there is a penalty for up to $2,000 and so forth with that. I've already talked a lot about social media. A couple things I didn't mention: independent contractors versus employees. We see that often done incorrectly. A lot of people are bringing on staff or people as independent contractors when technically they probably don't qualify for being an independent contractor. So you need to make sure you look at that. Yeah, otherwise we covered everything else on that list. Professional liability insurance. This was interesting, and this has been quite a while ago, but we had an occupational therapy assistant that was trying to start her own business, and she didn't want to be an OTA anymore. She just wanted to call herself a coach or a mentor and so forth. And they wouldn't let her get liability insurance with this company. So they said that you can, if sued, can you say why what you're doing isn't actually OT? So just some interesting information out there. I haven't experienced any of that myself, but we had a therapist come to us and tell us about that. And you need liability insurance if you're still seeing patients. Violating laws. So again, it's important to know and understand, the different false claims, the kickback, supervision requirements, all sorts of things with that. And training requirements. People don't know and understand that when they hire staff, that there's different requirements for training, and it can vary by the state. Insurances you take, like we have some insurances that require us to do certain trainings for our staff. Medicare, Medicaid all have different requirements. On May 6, 2024, there was a final rule that was published, updating regulations implementing Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disabilities in covered health programs and activities. And if you're Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, if you take any of those, that is you're included, and they outline specific requirements that we need to have in place to ensure meaningful access for individuals whose primary language for communication is not English and who have a limited ability to speak. They sent out another guideline this past December, but there's quite a few different things that you have to have in place on your website, at your place of work, and what you need to do to make sure you're providing the appropriate services with that. Yep. Interpreters and translators and target language. Yep, 100%. Um, Losing money. Uh, where we see people losing money, misclassifying workers and getting audited for appropriate classification of workers, general audits, I can't even say that word tonight. Delays in billing. I can't tell you how many people we have seen or worked with that get behind in notes, get behind with billing, and lose out in getting money because they've never even submitted their claims and it's past like timely filing. Not understanding insurance, not having any idea like what they can or cannot bill, or knowing that, Medicaid in North Dakota doesn't cover 97535. So what do I need to do differently? Um, you know, Spending too much money on things that aren't really needed. Maybe that's equipment or unnecessary certifications, when their money could be best spent elsewhere. I mentioned earlier, growing too quickly. We've seen some therapists have more troubles in their private practice because they've grown too quickly. Payroll systems, bookkeeping errors, accounting errors, are other issues that we've seen. And I guess I was quite rambly tonight. So how to get started with your private practice. And again, next week we'll go into more detail and really look at some of the different options and things like that. But it's essential to build a solid foundation. And if you read any books out there or look at any entrepreneurship stuff, they really talk about how important it is to make sure that you are building a solid foundation. And with healthcare, that means making sure you have appropriate policies and procedures in place. You have, the compliance plan in place. You're setting up basic yet scalable systems that are HIPAA compliant. You understand the difference, and this can depend, and we'll talk about this next week too. Obviously, it depends on the type of practice, but if you are a hybrid practice or taking insurance, you need to know in-network versus out-network, PPO versus HMO. We highly recommend that you learn and do your own insurance credentialing, because when you need to make changes, you're able to take control of that. Developing a solid marketing plan. I will tell you, we don't recommend sending out emails, dropping off flyers, marketing just to physicians. There's so many other things you need to do. Building relationships is critical. Developing credibility in your community is extremely important. And then very important to understand KPIs, understand financials, making sure you're running your P&Ls, taxes. We've had therapists that have come to us and they've made a lot of money, but they spend a lot of money and they didn't set aside money for taxes, and they got themselves in trouble that way. So yes, lots of things to consider. But before I go any further, I'm going to pull in our business besties here, Christy and Laura, making them come on stage. Let's see, I'll promote you guys to panelist. And Laura, you started about this year last time, right? Or even it was around AOTA, or was it before AOTA? I'll let her get in here and adjust it. Okay. When was it?
When I started the
When you
program,
started, yep. Well, you can say that too, when you really started your business, but when I first met you, I guess, and you started your private practice.
I was stalking you online a long time back when you were still teaching. So I knew before then, but I've been in the program a little over a year. And then I was in the program a few months and I met Christy.
Awesome. And where's Christy? I don't see Christy. Are you hiding? There you are.
No, I'm right here.
Okay, awesome. And Christy, so you started the program in what month?
Fe February
Okay,
2024. So about 2 weeks after Laura.
okay, okay, awesome. So what, I mean, I know you guys could talk an hour plus, just like I just did. But for those that are just thinking about starting a private practice or just getting into it with all that, because you guys have really gone through the major hard stuff over the last year. Dealing through getting up and going, Medicare issues, credentialing issues. I mean, Christy even had paychecks going to some random person rather than her bank account. I mean, you just, I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. So you guys
And
have
not her
been,
fault either. It was Medicare's
no,
fault.
100%.
Not my fault.
Nothing to do
Someone,
with what she did. So you guys have had, ups and downs and so forth. What tips would you recommend to therapists that have really helped you be successful?
oh, find a business bestie. Find a
Absolutely.
have a support network for sure. I
It's,
think that
yeah.
just this group has been absolutely crucial for me. I can't imagine having tried to do this on my own. In fact, I refused to do it on my own. I mean, Kara, I had started a concierge non-OT business before coming to you because I was scared to death to even touch insurance or anything related to, my traditional occupational therapy and having to do with billing Medicare. Um, and I probably talked to you like months before joining, right? I like dragged my feet for quite a while and I wasted a lot of money dragging my feet. I paid a lot of other people like uh, an accountant and a lawyer. I mean, I paid all kinds of people other than Kara to help me get things started. And if I had just jumped in, uh, when I met with you, I could have saved myself a heck of a lot of time and money from the get-go and just getting things set up instead of trying to just muddle my way through it. That was the thing. You had systems set up, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I was just kind of like all over the place trying to figure it out and floundering. And that was definitely not efficient for sure.
And I think that's the big thing too, right? When you first start, you have your idea of what your business wants to look like, and you kind of get tunnel vision and you forget about all the important things you have to get into place. And that was really important because there were a lot of things I didn't think about. I was I'm by myself, right? So I wasn't like compliance manual. Why do I need a compliance manual? It's just me.
Right,
Why do
right.
I need to worry about a lot of these things? And then getting those things in place early helps you because all of a sudden now I'm super busy and looking to find somebody else to come work with me now because I'm busy enough now where I'm starting to be stretched where I'm looking at hiring somebody. So you have to have those things in place because things can take off quickly. And then you're on your you gotta be ready.
And Laura,
A
can
hun-
you talk just real quick how you pivoted um, with your private practice because of something that came along?
Yeah. So was starting with the kind of the thought that I would just be doing aging in place and then have my little side niche, which is kind of bariatric and plus size care, because that's really where my passion piece is. And I was at one of my kids' games and I was talking to a friend that was an attorney and she's like, "Hey, do you do this thing called FCEs? Do you even know what that is?" And I was like, "Vaguely, I kind of know what that is. It's a functional capacity evaluation." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, if you can figure out how to make that happen, I got some business for you." And so I left that baseball game and went home and did a little research and figured out that that was something really cool that I could do to add to my business. And went and got my certification on that in a couple of days. And now that's kind of the biggest part of my business, and really what's paying my bills as I'm growing my Med B and my other piece. And so I contract with attorneys, and I have a whole little bundle of legal support services where I offer home modification assessments, needs assessments, and these functional capacity evaluation tests for my attorneys. And it's great. And it's been a really good way to kind of build my business. All from a conversation at a kid game.
They're both OTs. Oh,
Mhm.
Christy, change your answer to just going to host and panelist now that I made
Oh,
you
sorry.
panelist. So change it to everyone.
I'm sorry. I was answering just host and panelists.
Yep.
Kim,
Nope. You're good.
we do not, we had never met before this program, Kim. Laura lives in Omaha, Nebraska, and I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So we didn't know each other prior to coming into this program, but we've known each other now for a year, and we actually just met for the first time in Philadelphia at AOTA just 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like
And
that.
we were roommates, and it was great. And we made everybody crazy because we literally talk every day.
We do.
Always.
We
And we
talk.
have
Yeah.
for a really long time. We text, we call, we Wine Wednesday Zooms, because there's always something. And there's moments where one of us is having a really bad day and going through a lot of all of those scary girl boss things where things are not going well, and that's when the other one kind of steps in to pick us up and motivate, and then we're good and things are going great. And then the next time somebody else is maybe having some hard times, and we kind of lift each other up and help each other out. So it's a good system that we have, and a good network we have, for sure.
Yeah, just like Kara, we have both we're probably only at the 50 mark, not the 500 mark, but we've both threatened to quit several times. But we've both found it 1,000% worth it. I'm also probably not employable anymore. I would have said 5 years ago that there's absolutely no way I would ever have my own business. I didn't have any desire to go into entrepreneurship or doing my own thing. I didn't think I had it in me, though I do come from a long line of entrepreneurs in my family. It's just not something I had considered until I was actually very unexpectedly laid off in the very last year of COVID. And I pivoted and I started my own business before meeting Kara, and it was a concierge service of sorts, and I turned it into what it is today, which is a mobile outpatient um, occupational therapy business. So
And you
yeah,
just hired your first staff person.
I did. I actually have a per diem 1099 staff member now, and I have an assistant, an administrative assistant who's virtual, and getting ready to hire an OT sometime soon, because my wait list is so long, I don't know how to manage it anymore.
And another thing I want to point out with Laura, with her, like how we talked about earlier with reasons why to start your private practice, with her pivot and working with attorneys, she's also inspired many other people to do what she's doing. And in fact, we have our first functional capacity evaluation at our clinic scheduled now. And then we're also doing a program for therapists that want to do functional capacity assessments and so forth, starting at the end of the month. So again, you're not only able to build and grow things for yourself, but you tend to impact many other people around you, and that can extend a lot further than even just beyond your local community and so forth with that. So I think that's pretty cool. And then Laura, you also do some contracting with your business as well. So it's not just, and that's where a lot of times we're looking at that hybrid route where, you're not just doing insurance, you're not just doing cash, you're not just contracting, but maybe you're doing a combination of those things. Like for our business, we do cash, we do insurance, we contract with different agencies. We just signed a contract a few weeks ago with a skilled nursing facility, which is awesome and different. So there's lots of different things you can do to have income coming in from a variety of places and not just have it, you know, in one pot. And if something happens to that one pot, you know, you have to shift quickly. So.
And there's lots of ways to diversify. So in the last probably 3 months, I've been doing some webinars. I've been doing I've got an ebook that's coming out. There's a lot, I'm working on a research paper with somebody. There's lots of things that you can do once you kind of set your mind to be an entrepreneur and do your own thing. There's lots of other streams of income that you can do and ways that you can kind of make your business bigger and have fun again being a therapist, because sometimes it's not so fun, especially when you're working for these big corporations. So
I would 1,000% agree with that. I would say that one of the biggest things I've learned since having my own business is just about unlimited earning potential that I didn't realize I could have in having my own business. I was excited to work for myself, but moreover, the connections that I've made just in this group and in learning how to network with other OTs and PTs and professionals has been paramount for me in being able to learn from other colleagues about ways that they're marketing their businesses and things that they're doing to try to promote themselves. I mean, I can jump on Facebook any day of the week and see what any one of my cohorts is doing to add something to their business, not in a copycat kind of way, but just in a, you know, hey, here's what I'm doing. You know, that we're all sharing with each other all of the time, kind of, you know, if this works for anyone else, it's working for me, great, take that and run with it and see if you can turn it into something for your business. We're all willing to share ideas and lift each other up and help each other succeed, because I think we all have the same idea of, you know, transforming healthcare into what we all wanted it to be when we got into it, and not working for, you know, the man in the corporate world. So
we're really trying to change it from the inside out, really, is what we're all kind
yeah,
of doing. So that's kind of the amazing piece of it all.
for sure.
Awesome. Oh, Christine had a question. Feeling overwhelmed with managing steps, staying on top of what I need to do, from marketing to eventually taking insurance. Would love ideas for managing all the business pieces. So Christine, you know, if you want to share a little bit more about what actually you're doing, what kind of business, because that will make a difference. We do have a private practice checklist you can download off of our website. And some other videos, YouTube videos on systems, and actually we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a couple webinars next week as well. But you know, creating systems is really important. You know, knowing and understanding rules and regulations, getting policies and procedures, but then also creating systems so that you can grow is huge. Like, I know Christy loves our systems coach because he's been able to help her do a lot of cool things that really you probably, I mean, I know I didn't know anything about before starting. Christy, anything you want to mention about systems and how that can really help with your business?
Anthony is my PT bestie. Sorry, Laura. I'm cheating on you a little bit.
It's fine. It's fine.
Anthony helps me in ways I didn't realize that I needed to be helped. He sets up systems within my software tool that help me track leads, new calls coming in. He just did a call with me and my new assistant the other day to help set up a call tree so that certain calls get routed to her, certain calls get routed to me, based on, you know, patients that I'm working with, patients that have been with me a long time that I know aren't going to want to talk to anybody else, having a new assistant on board, just sending out intake paperwork when I get a new eval or a referral come in, being able to just set up an appointment for that patient and then have an automatic text go out to a family member of theirs who might be managing their care, puts a calendar reminder on their Google Calendar, oh, thank you, Laura. You've spelled aging wrong. I love you.
Sorry, I'm typing and
okay.
trying to listen. I
That's
can't
right.
multitask.
It also sends out intake paperwork to them in a link that they can fill out online, and then I can upload that into my EMR easily. Sends out 24-hour appointment reminder text that has drastically decreased my rate of cancellation. So gives patients a chance to say, hey, that appointment isn't going to work for me anymore. Gives me a chance to throw somebody in that spot so that my schedule stays full. Let's see. I mean, I have a lot of patients with dementia or confusion that, don't text, don't pick up the phone. Anthony has set up some great systems for me so that every contact that I have in my business phone system has a designated caregiver if they need one, so that when I go to call into that patient, I can call the patient directly if I want. But if I need to send an intake form or a text reminder, that reminder can automatically go to a family member without me ever having to think about it. It's an automation that happens. I don't think twice about it. It just happens on the computer side of things. So I'm hands off with all that kind of stuff. Once he sets it up to happen, I never think twice about it. My VA doesn't have to think about it. These are things that just happen. It's great. And I know some of you earlier were talking about concerns you had about, well, how do I keep up with the marketing? How do I know how to, do billing? How do I know how to do all those kinds of things? I didn't realize when I came into the program that all those kinds of things would be addressed and taught to me through monthly coaching calls. I mean, there are very specific topics that we go over every single month. I mean, if you don't know how to market, I didn't know how to market a business. We have coaching calls every single month just for marketing. We have financial calls every single month just for finances. So anything that you need to go, run a business as an entrepreneur, it's all part of the program. And I feel totally prepared to be able to do this. Whereas a year and a half ago, I definitely did not.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming in and sharing your experience. And I know both Christy and Laura are also always grateful to help people that are getting started in this, because they've been through it. So I know they'd be okay if you wanted to reach out to them. I will send out, probably not tonight, because I maybe didn't go to sleep very well early last night, but tomorrow, I will send out the recording, so you guys have access to the recording and the PowerPoint, and then I can put the links and emails of Laura and Christy and their websites in there, the links for the private practice list as well. And then next week, just as a reminder, we're doing one webinar where we'll really talk about the different types of private practices. We'll talk more about, the payment types, things like that. Then we're also going to do one on, those that have businesses, how to kind of take your business to the next level and so forth as well. So really appreciate you guys all popping on, and super thankful for Christy and Laura for popping on, because again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join our Next Level Occupational Therapy Facebook group. If you're interested in home safety and modifications, be sure to join that Facebook group. We also have a home and community therapist network where we provide webinars and resources, and therapists are part of a national directory. And as part of that national directory, we work on connecting therapists with a variety of resources, as well as referrals when people come to us looking for therapists in different areas of the United States. And if you're looking to start, build, or grow your private practice, we have a therapy business builder program where we've helped hundreds of therapists across the United States start, build, and grow successful therapy practices. Please reach out with any questions you have.